This is John Cullen with GrowingYourGreens.com. Today I have another exciting episode for you. I'm here in my backyard garden, sitting amongst all my beautiful raised beds and some of the plants I'm growing here in the backyard. Anyways, today's episode is going to be an interesting one. It's going to be kind of my commentary on some things that are happening lately in the news and all this kind of stuff. I don't normally get involved too much in the news, but some things are just hard to avoid. And today's video topic is about my answer to cancer. It's my vegetable garden, man. I'm sitting in between it. Gardening is an integral part of my life because, I mean, we all have to eat. We all got to eat food, and I want the majority of the food that I'm eating coming out of my garden, my vegetable garden, and eating a lot of the healthy foods for me. So, you know, many of you guys may have heard some of the things recently going on in the news. Famous people, actresses or whatever, are getting their boobs cut off. You know, nice women with nice breasts, getting them cut off because they don't want to get breast cancer. So the thought is, if I remove the breasts, it'll greatly diminish my risk for breast cancer because the cancer can't go to my breast. Well, in my opinion, and before I go on, I do need to give my disclaimer in this video is that everything that I say in this video is, my opinion and is for entertainment purposes only. If you do have a cancer or any other kind of disease, please consult a qualified medical practitioner that can help you out. This is just sharing with you guys my views and my opinions on the subject. So they get the boobs cut out, and then they have a much lower risk of getting breast cancer because there's no breast tissue for the cancer to go. But if the cancer doesn't go to the breast, it may go to the uterus. So then what? They're going to cut out the uterus, and if it doesn't go to the uterus, where's it going to go? The brain next, or the lungs, or, the skin? There's always another place the cancer will go. If it doesn't, go to one place, it's going to go to another. So what I like to do, instead of worrying about the cancer and cutting parts of me out, I don't want to cut off my testicles because I get testicular cancer. That's part of me, you know what I'm saying? So, instead of cutting things out, it's my opinion, and what I'm doing in my life is doing the proactive approach. You may be able to predict to some level of extent, the risk of you getting cancer based on your genes and based on your parents and your parents' parents and all this kind of stuff. But I think the best thing to do is to be proactive about your health, no matter it's the cancer or anything else. Now, how can we be the most proactive for the health? Well, the one thing to me is really clear is if we look like 100, 200 years ago, what were the levels of breast cancer? When you were a kid growing up, did women have breast cancer? Was all these breast cancers astronomical and cancers sky high happening to people if somebody got cancer, it was it was a big thing because people rarely got cancer back in the day. Why? What changed between back in the day and now? Have our genes changed that much in 100 years? No, they haven't, but what has really changed dramatically is the food people eat. Maybe just 100, 200 years ago, the majority of the food people ate, they grew themselves. They ate natural foods found in nature. They didn't buy things in packages, bottles, and jars. They didn't eat out at restaurants. They didn't have restaurants. If you wanted to eat, man, you had to grow it and eat it and cook it yourself and do all that stuff. And this is what's really changed, in my opinion. And so for me, I want to be proactive. And I want to do gardening, and I want to grow my own food and have the majority of the food that I'm eating come out of my garden. There's research out there that shows things like the allium family. We got some, wow, it smells amazing. We got some sweet onions flowering right now, and last night actually I took these flowers off and spread them all over my salad. It's totally delicious. We got the allium family here, the onions, which are also included in the garlic, and we got the other ones, the brassica family. This is actually some broccoli, and same thing with kohlrabi and collard greens and bok choy. They're all in the same family of plants. These two family of plants, there's a lot of research that support these are some of the, probably most protective plant categories against things like cancer and other things. So I like to include some of these in my diet every day, whether I'm eating the onion bulb or the onion stalk or the onion flowers. All those, nutrients are in there. And now the nutrients, while there are vitamins, minerals, what's the most important nutrients in the plants you're growing, in my opinion, are the phytochemicals. These are many discovered and also yet undiscovered nutrients in the plants. And why are these phytonutrients in the plants? The phytonutrients are in the plants not for us. They're in there for the plants. These are the same phytonutrients that are in the plants that protect them from predators in nature. What are predators of onions? I don't know. Animals that would come and eat the onions, right? And chow on them, because every plant in your garden, every creature on earth, the number one main thing to do, their prime directive is to reproduce and multiply and continue on. so that they don't become extinct like the dinosaurs. And some of these properties in the plants which make their phytochemicals and phytonutrients are there for the plants, but when we eat them, they give us some protective powers as well, much like some pixie dust. But in any case, seriously though, and that's why I'm growing my own food. And based on my research, some of the phytonutrients and some of the nutrients in the produce can be lost, during harvesting, hydrocooling, and shipping. As a matter of fact, one of the research studies I've seen shows that within 24 hours, up to 50% of certain nutrients can be lost in produce that's cut, picked, harvested, and shipped to you. Now, then it's even shipped and put on a truck from California to Florida or the East Coast, if you live out in the East Coast, especially in the wintertime. And, there's even more nutrient loss. Now, am I saying that fruits and vegetables in a grocery store are, worthless? No, I'm saying, if that's the best you could do, that's great. Eat more fruits and vegetables. These have the protective properties in them that are really good for us that may prevent things like cancer based on some of the research I've seen and based on my beliefs because of the research. So I just want to maximize those nutrients. Furthermore, if we look at studies in the past, like in the 1950s, 1930s, back in the day, they've done studies where they take one apple of back then, and one apple of today, and you'd have to eat like 2.5 apples of today to get the same nutrients in the one apple from back then. What's going on? Is it the hybridization and the new different kinds of seeds they're using of those apples, or is it soil depletion and nutrients are no longer in their soil so that the plants can't absorb those nutrients and put them into the apple for us to eat? So, it's my thought that it's, primarily due to the nutrient depletion in the soil. So that's why I'm growing the most nutrient-dense crops that I can, based on the research that I have, adding things like the, compost, organic matter, and the trace minerals back in the soil so that my plants can be fully healthy. And when your plants have more nutrients in there, guess what? They're going to be healthier themselves. But they're, based on the studies I've seen, they're also going to contain more phytonutrients and phytochemicals that are protective properties for us. So that's totally crazy. Now, I know if you're a woman out there, you might be thinking, John, it's all good that you want to eat healthy to prevent things, or not get cancer and whatnot. But there's this thing called the PCRA gene or whatnot, and if you got that, you're just gonna get cancer. Well, I have done research, and there are studies that show by changing your diet, you can actually be less susceptible to getting things like cancer. I mean, let me share you guys as my story for those of you guys that don't know it. I mean, I personally might not be here right now to share this message with you. What happened to me when I was in my 20s, I had what was called spinal meningitis. This is a potentially fatal disease, and actually the doctors told me that I might not make it out alive. Now, that's not a fun place to be, especially when you're in your 20s or at any age. I mean, I thought when I was in my 20s, man, this isn't supposed to happen to me till I'm like way older. But the reason why I got that was because the doctor said what I had was complement immune deficiency. So what they said was I had these genes that basically made me chronically have a weak immune system, which means I was more susceptible to any disease, and I could get it and then be sick and lose my life. And back in the day when I was in the hospital, I really thought hard. What was the most important thing to me at the time? Is it all the money in the bank? Is it, having a girlfriend or having a nice car? No, that wouldn't do me nothing right then and there. But having my health was the most precious gift that I could have. And I learned that, that I had bad genes. And so was I just supposed to live out my life with bad genes and just cross my fingers that I wasn't going to get spinal meningitis or cancer or anything else again? No, I need to do something to change my outcome. So what I did was I did a lot of research, and I found that by eating a, plant-strong diet, plant-based diet, however you want to call it, these are the things that have protective properties for us, and it's the, the overconsumption and too much consumption of the animal products, and especially the processed foods, that may raise your incidences of, sickness and illness, in my opinion, based on my research. So that's why I started eating more plants, and then to even further that, I started growing my own plants and growing my own food so that I could even better my diet, better than what I could buy, so that I could have the most health. And that's what I encourage all you guys to do is, to stay motivated about gardening. If you're not currently gardening, I encourage you guys to garden and not only grow the food, but also eat the food. Because, besides just changing your diet by growing a vegetable garden, you're going to be healthy in other ways. Number one, this is totally apparent, you're going to be getting exercise. I mean, you're going to have to lift those compost bags, you're going to have to dig, you're going to have to plant, you're going to have to do all kinds of stuff. Do some physical activity. Many people these days, in my opinion, are not getting enough physical activity. Number 2, you're going to be out in the sun, man. The sun's so nice out here today. Barely any clouds in the sky, and and there's bugs too. But the sun's so nice, and when the sun comes in contact with your skin makes vitamin D, and there are studies that show vitamin D may have positive roles to play with prevention of cancer. But they don't prevent flies from landing on you. But yeah, vitamin D is a great thing to have, and especially with people living indoors too much, they're not creating the vitamin D they need. Another thing that's really good about being outside is breathing the fresh air. Breathing fresh air is really important. We need oxygen to survive, and indoors, there's been a lot of studies that show, indoors you're getting recirculated air, and it's not quite as fresh as it could be. So get outside to get some fresh air. Another thing that's very important for me in gardening is that, in gardening, when you're outside playing with the plants, and I love my plants, they smell so good, you're back to nature. I mean, this is where we all originated, man. We originated in nature. We originated in the outdoors. Back 2,000 years ago, I don't even know if they had houses and whatnot. Maybe they had castles and stuff and caves. But, we want to get back to nature. We are creatures of nature, just like every other creature on this planet. We're all creatures of nature, and we live in an artificial environment in little houses or teepees or yurts or whatever you got, whatever you're living in. So getting out to nature, we could just reconnect with, with our absolute being and stuff. In addition, another thing that's really beneficial about the gardening is you're smelling things. And, here we got some soil here, and there has been studies that show like smelling soil is like smelling a fine wine. It gets better with time. But no, seriously though, there's studies that show, there's microbes in the soil that when we breathe them in, they may be able to lift your depression, and they make you feel better. So, all our senses are just really here to help us in nature. Our eyes are used to spot, things that are ripening, and so we could tell the difference in colors and stuff. It's just so cool to just be out in nature and use your senses, feel the wind on your hair and on your skin and whatnot. So besides just the soil and the microbes in the soil and being connected back to nature, back with the earth, Mother Earth, which is where we live here, another reason for gardening is because you're going to be outside and you're going to be in nature, you're going to be in the natural elements, so you're going to be in less stressful environment. In my opinion, stress is a big reason for many illnesses, and we just need to relax and just be at peace in nature, whether you want to underneath a tree, or whether you just want to garden, just see greenery all around you. You're just going to be more at peace and less stress. We need to get out of that busy 9-to-5 world where we're either on the computer, running from here to there, and just being in nature, gardening at your time. Time seems to just fly when I'm gardening because I'm just having so much fun. And, being more at peace instead of in that fast-paced society that we all live in. So the final thing I'd like to say today is, besides just the gardening and all the benefits you're going to derive from, I really want to encourage you guys to really, eat what's coming out your garden, whether they're your onion tops or whether you're your broccoli, whether you're your leafy greens that you could barely see down there. We want to be eating a plant-centric diet and eating mostly plants, and especially, like the name of my channel is, growing your greens. Greens, in my opinion, are some of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet and have some of these anti-cancer prevention properties contained within them. And if you're picking them, eating them fresh, growing them in the highest quality soil, compost, and using the trace minerals, you're going to have some of the best foods on earth, which in my opinion, in turn, will give you the best health on earth to literally disease-proof yourself. Now, if you don't believe me about this disease-proof and stuff, there's a really good website I want to encourage you guys to check out. It's called diseaseproof.com. Dr. Joel Fuhrman wrote a book called Eat to Live, and I guess the opposite is Eat to Not Live. I want you to encourage you guys to eat to live, and check out that book out of the library. Buy a copy. It's actually the New York Times #1 bestseller for a while, and you could truly eat to live by eating some of the foods you're growing in nature. So if I was a woman, I definitely would not get my boobs cut off. I'd much rather grow a garden and eat out of my garden, eat the majority foods out of my garden, including ramping up the leafy greens by juicing, blending, and eating a lot of salads, and just making it fun, and more importantly, getting the kids involved with the nature and the gardening. Because, we've really gotten away from gardening and growing our own food, which is simply where we were about 100, 200 years ago. But now we're all about convenience and going to the store, and the food comes from the store. It doesn't come from your garden. I see countless people spending money and money and money at the grocery store when they could simply be growing their own food. I mean, I really just don't have to buy things like onions and garlics or greens now because I have so many grown in my garden that I could just come out here and pick every single day and, you know, get these little tubs of 5 ounces of organic greens at the Whole Food stores like $3.50, $4. Man, it's just insane. So gardening will also save you money. So hopefully after watching this video, you'll start to garden and really realize the importance of the food you can grow yourself. They're some of the most cancer preventative foods, in my opinion, based on the research I've seen. So I hope you guys enjoyed this quick episode. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes where I'm getting more into the gardening and sharing some techniques and tips with you so that you can grow more food at home. Once again, my name is John Kohler with growingyourgreens.com. We'll see you next time, and remember, keep on growing.